Welcome to the Next Level Life podcast with Christine Corcoran. This podcast is made for the powerhouse businesswomen who are ready to ignite their fullest potential. This is where we will dive deep into the mindset breakthroughs and sprinkle in some kick up the butt motivation so you can scale your business with confidence and clarity. Whether you're craving more income, impact, or inspiration, this podcast will be your ultimate resource for all things next level. Listen in as we have authentic conversations with game-changing female entrepreneurs as we reveal the secrets on what it takes to rise and thrive. So go ahead, ignite your inner fire, and let's get you taking massive aligned action. Are you ready to elevate? Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for hitting download. I've now started to record video with the podcast. So if you would love to watch it on YouTube and actually see my face as we're chatting, then you're more than welcome to head across to YouTube to search my name, Christine Corcoran Coach, and you will see it there. And make sure you hit subscribe. So if you're not hitting subscribe on the podcast app that you're listening to, please do so. You're more likely to get notified of the new episodes as they come out and all the new announcements that I have for you. So today on the podcast, I want to talk to you about the fear of vulnerability and how it could be affecting your connection that you make with your audience, how it could be affecting your connection that you have with your clients, and how it also could be affecting your visibility. I recently had an experience where I spoke at an event here on the Gold Coast, and the premise of the event is to actually share your failures. And I love the event because it is a really different type of event, because I know sometimes you go to events and all you hear about all the great things that people are doing. And it's all, I mean, you know how much I love events, incredibly love events. It is always so uplifting to actually hear what's possible, right? If you frame it like that. But I know sometimes we can get caught up in doubting ourselves when we hear other people talking about the great things that they've achieved. And what I love about this different style of event called Fuck Up Nights is that it shows the challenges, it shows the lessons that people have learned, and it shows the failures and the mistakes that people have made. So every time I go, it's always a really unique story that people share, and you learn from it. It's really, really cool type of event. They also don't record it because it's a safe space for people to share their vulnerabilities and to share their failures. And so when Tegan asked me to speak, I sat with it for a bit because I was like, oh, what could I share? What's a good enough story? Because some of the people that I had seen spoke before were sharing major fuck-ups, like losses of hundreds of thousands of dollars, losing their accounts on Meta ads or Facebook or Instagram, or losing business partnerships, or being sued, or being audited by customs, and like all of these major situations. And so I was like, oh, I don't really have anything, which is a good thing. But I also was like, actually, like I do have failures. Like I've had things that have gone wrong for sure. And it made me think of one that I had back in probably my second year of business, where I was kicked out of a venue space when I was running a multi-day event, and it was horrendous. Like I had such a terrible experience, and it was so full on that it was really uncomfortable. And so I literally like shoved that experience down, didn't think about it. And when she asked me to speak and it came up to my mind that I was like, oh, I could share that, because it was definitely a mistake that I made, and I should have read the fine print, and I should have, asked all the questions, but I didn't. And these are some of the mistakes that we make. And so I'm like, do I share it with you? I'm sitting with it in my mind right now, like thinking about, do I share it or not? But the reason why I wanted to talk about it on the podcast is because of actually the feelings of what came up while I was sharing it on the night, and this fear of vulnerability. So what was really interesting is that before sharing it on the night, I did share it with a few people. And so they were like, oh, that's a great story to tell that story, which I know is awesome. Always good to hear. It went from people going like, yep, great story to tell, but like I still lived it. And so I shared the story on the night, and we only have about 10-15 minutes to share, which is very, very quick of a story to tell that ran over 2 days. And I shared the story, and I felt like a little bit nervous beforehand, but I wasn't super nervous because I was like, it's over now. Like it happened like 6 years ago. I don't really think about it anymore. And it's kind of like, I've moved beyond it, because some of the mistakes that I made there, I've learned from them, and I've like explored like, okay, this is why I read the terms and conditions of every contract that I sign. This is make sure that I ask questions and don't care that I look silly or I don't know what I'm talking about if I ask this random question from this venue. And I remember like when I signed the contract for the QT for Unstoppable Women this year, I was meticulous. I went through every single part of that contract. I asked questions. I was like, I don't care if they think that I'm some amateur event person, because like, I don't want to get caught out. So I think that that's always good to have that mindset of like not caring what people think. But what really came up for me after I shared the experience at this event was reflecting back on how it did feel quite uncomfortable to share a major mistake. And it did feel uncomfortable to stand in front of people and share that, hey, I had fucked up. And it doesn't feel good. Like, there's obviously shame attached to it. There is the fear of what people are going to say, fear of that judgment. And it was such a beautiful, welcoming event that I didn't feel bad about it afterwards. Like, I didn't have a vulnerability hangover, which I think sometimes I have had in the past when sharing certain stories on the podcast or on stages or on the, other times where I've shared in content, where you share it or do it on live and you share it and then you're like, oh my gosh, why did I share that? Or I shouldn't have shared that. But you know what? Like, I feel like one of the biggest gifts that we get from sharing vulnerably is how much it develops a level of connection and relatability with other people, and it makes other people feel seen and heard. It makes other people feel okay in their own mistakes. And so I would hate for the opposite. The opposite is I don't share any of the mistakes, or I don't share any of the vulnerabilities or behind the scenes, and people then think that I'm perfect, or they develop a lack of connection with me because they don't see that it's okay for them to make mistakes, or just I feel like it doesn't develop this connection that I would like to have with people. And so I've been doing a little bit of work around this because I was like, okay, why has this fear come up for me recently? Because I don't have a fear of being seen, but I definitely have a fear of being seen to not have it all together, or to not feel like I know what I'm talking about, to feel like I'm incompetent. Like, I feel like there's a lot of fear attached to that, which I know already. I know it comes back from my childhood, that it seemed like a weakness to show any type of emotion. And it seemed like there was a high expectation in our household when it comes to schooling. And so that then developed a belief system around that it's not okay to show when you've made mistakes, or I would get in trouble if I've made mistakes, right? So subconsciously, do we develop these associations that if this happens, then this is the outcome that will happen. And so I recognized that recently after speaking at this event, that I was like, oh, I do prep my content and I do really think about like what I want to share, and not necessarily from a place of like wanting to control it, but it's definitely like I want it to come across as it's going to be valuable and it's going to be useful for people to hear. So I think sometimes I really think about like the story and the connection and what parts I want to share that it's going to be valuable. But I think then what people don't see is the messy part. And I was talking about this on my stories today, like there is a really fine line between sharing your vulnerabilities and sharing your mistakes, or sharing from a place of being in the problem, versus waiting for you to get through the problem and then sharing your experience and sharing your lessons. There's a very big difference. And there are statistics that show that if you share too much of the messy side, or too much of the vulnerability or the incompetencies before you've built trust and credibility, it can create doubt in someone's mind and would cause them to not buy from you. And so, and especially like in my jobs, there was very much this perception. I remember my boss literally saying to me once, people don't buy from businesses who aren't doing well. So when people ask you, how's the business? How's things going? The answer is always great. Things are going really good. We're doing all these things. It's so exciting. We've got this new team member and we're doing this. And so I learned that through him, which I thought was great. Like, honestly, I thought it was great because it's true. If people hear the woes, if people hear like things aren't going so well, subconsciously, why would someone want to buy from that? Right? Like, it makes sense. And so I feel like one of the things that has shifted so much though on social media and from people we buy from is a level of authenticity that is required for us to build trust and connection with that person. And so I recognized recently that I was like, okay, well, hang on, maybe this is actually holding me back from sharing more vulnerably, which could create stronger connection and relatability. But I still have this fear around like, but it has to come across polished, or it has to come across with this level of professionalism. And so I honestly believe that I'm going to be working on this over the next couple of months, of like thinking about how and taking action on ways that I can share more vulnerably, ways that I can share the hard parts, the challenging parts. Because I've felt like this recently, but also recognize that because of the work that I've done on my mindset, I move quickly out of a problem state. And I know this is a lot of what I help my clients with as well, because we can get stuck in the mindset of focusing too much on the problem. And then what actually happens, it's very similar to what I was talking about on the podcast recently, is that we have a confirmation bias, right? There's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system that filters 8 million bits of information per second, right? And our brain basically filters out what's important. and only shows us what's important based on our belief systems. So if I have a belief that it's not safe for me to share vulnerably because there's a potential loss of loss of clients signing up or loss of trust or loss of credibility, then of course I'm going to avoid it. Plus, because of the confirmation bias my brain has, it's only going to show me proof of that, right? So your brain is actively searching evidence of what you believe to be true. So if you have a belief system there's not enough clients to go around, if you have a belief system that you cannot show any emotion because it's weakness, or whatever belief system that you have, your brain is actively filtering out the opposite information that could possibly show you that that's not true, because your brain has a confirmation bias. It's always looking for evidence to fulfill that belief, right? So I sat with this recently and was like, okay, how could this be holding me back? This fear of vulnerability is causing me to hold back in a way of sharing in the hard times, sharing in the troubles, sharing in some of the insecurities, like all of that. And I know that when I see other people share from those places, it makes me feel more connected to them. It makes me feel like they understand. It makes me feel like I relate to them and I feel connected to them, right? So I want that for my audience too. So this is something that I'm going to be working through, doing some mindset work on it, and then also taking some action on sharing a lot more vulnerably. And it's really interesting because, like I was saying, I have this ability to be able to get out of the problem really quickly, and I'm such a big action taker that I don't spend too much time in the problem. And yet I need to, and not necessarily need to as in I'm going to keep myself stuck. That's not what I mean. I mean that I'm going to do more reflection on in those moments so I can share from that place, because I quite quickly move on to the next piece and share the solution or share the outcome because I know how valuable that is for people, but I'm missing the opportunity of sharing from a vulnerable place. So how am I going to do this? I honestly don't know just yet. I'm trying to figure out a way that maybe I'm going to sit and write down all the failures and all the mistakes and all the hard times and all of that first, to try and pull from my experience over the years of thinking about then what I could share. And then I'm also going to maybe share more lives, do more Instagram lives, and share also like this on the podcast as well. I always find that my clients do get a lot out of it when I share more vulnerably on the podcast. Walking away from that event on Wednesday was I felt beautiful relief of it was good to get the story out there. But then I was also I'm glad that it wasn't recorded because it is a really vulnerable story. And I think that, there were other people involved, and I also don't want it to look bad. Just super vulnerably here, sharing with you right now, I don't want it to look bad, because I love putting on events and I love everything going to plan, but that's not always the case. And so I'll share with you a little bit of the story. I don't want to be here for too long, but I want to share with you a little bit of the story because I feel like I've been talking about it and then you're probably sitting there going, Christine, just bloody tell us. So I was about 2 years into my business, I think 18 months to 2 years into my business, and I decided that I wanted to run a retreat. I'd seen everyone online running these amazing retreats and booking these beautiful Airbnbs, and it looked amazing. And I was like, I want to do that. And just because I am such a big action taker, I do it fast. So I jumped on Airbnb. I found a great house that was absolute beachfront with a pool and with enough rooms for me to have a small group of people. And I booked it. And I didn't read all the details, and I went ahead and started planned it out in such depth. I planned out the exact itinerary. I made sure that everything was booked. I asked a few friends who were other business owners that could present and do other things. So I had my beautiful friend Asya, who's a chef. She came along and did all the food for the weekend, but also ran a nutrition session. I had my friend Claire come and do a marketing session, and then also did marketing consults for every single person. I had a photographer come along. I had my friend Lee come along and do a money mindset session, and then also run yoga. I had another lady come along and do a self-love session. There was a lot in 2 days for a retreat. It was a full-on jam-packed itinerary, which again was another major lesson that I was like, I just don't do that anymore. There's no point in jam-packing, because at the end of the day, when people left, they were exhausted, absolutely exhausted, because I just had done too much. We'd done too many activities in a short period of time. So what ended up happening is we started the retreat on a Saturday morning. Everyone showed up at 9 a.m. My sister also came along to support the event. And my sister, the chef, and me, we arrived on the Friday night to get the house all set up. And then Saturday morning, everyone started arriving. The morning ran smoothly and it was all good until the afternoon. We did breakout sessions. I had the marketer doing marketing consults. I had the photographer doing photography sessions. The chef was organizing dinner, and I was also doing coaching sessions. So I was in a different part of the house and I was running coaching sessions. And we did a few of those, and then one person walked out and was waiting for the next person. And while I was waiting for the next person, I checked my phone, and my phone had 15 missed calls on it and a voicemail. And I was like, from a number I didn't know. And I was like, okay, holy shit, what's this? And so I listened to the voicemail, and the voicemail was this lady saying, this is the Airbnb host. We can tell that you're running an event out of this Airbnb and you do not have approval for this. You have to get out. You have until 6 p.m. to get out. It was incredibly jarring and traumatic, and my body went into full shock. I remember literally shaking, my head feeling super hot. I couldn't breathe. My mouth went dry. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? What the hell do I do? And then the next client walked in the door. And the show must go on, right? So I was like, well, again, I've always learned along all the journey of my business journey and my corporate jobs and my job when I worked on cruise ships, we were always told, like, you don't ever show anything that happens behind the scenes. You want to make sure that the client experience is paramount and make sure that it's the best experience that they could possibly have. So I sat down with the client to do the coaching session. And as we were coaching, I was trying to keep my mind focused, and the fear thoughts were running through my brain. I was freaking out. I was trying to breathe. I had dry mouth. I was like, couldn't even focus on what we were focusing on in the session. We ended up finishing the session, and then I went downstairs and I grabbed Sarah, my sister, and grabbed the chef, and we jumped into the laundry, and I said, this is what's happening. And they're like, what? Like, this has never happened before. The chef was like, this has never happened for me before. She's run many retreats before. And I was like, what the hell do we do? And as we were standing there trying to figure it out, the phone rang again, and it was the same number. And I answered and I explained, like, I didn't know. We're not running a physical event where people are coming in and out all the time. It's the exact same people. We're staying here for the weekend. Like, that's what we booked. We booked the house for the weekend. And they're like, no, we don't have insurances for this. This was not approved. You should have told us. And they're like, you have to get out. The owner of the house is driving down from Brisbane and you have to get out. And I was freaking out, hung up the phone again, and we were trying to figure out what the hell to do. And then a few minutes later, the number called again. And I was like, oh my God, okay, we get it. We have to get out. Like, I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do. And so I answered the phone again, and this lady was the host again. And she said, I actually host other houses in the area. I've got one other house about 4 streets over that is available. They're just cleaning it right now. And if you want, you could move over there and it'll cost you an extra $1,000. And I was like, okay, can I go look at it? And she's like, yep. So I got in the car, drove across. It was fine. It was a really nice house. It just obviously wasn't beachfront or it didn't have a pool. And I was like, well, better that than cancel the event and have to tell everyone to pack up and get the hell out. Like, that didn't feel like a good outcome or scenario. And so I went back to the house and said to them, yep, okay, we'll move into that house. I actually didn't have the $1,000. I had to borrow it from my sister. Like, I way undercharged for that retreat. I was coming off that completely, like, don't even know if I broke even. Like, I literally, in the end, didn't break even. But I think before even going into the weekend was at a loss, right? Which, again, another lesson. But sometimes these are lessons you have to learn in order to change the way that you do things in the future. So basically what I did is I gathered everyone in the kitchen and had a conversation and let them know that, unfortunately, this is the case and we have to move houses. I've got another house. We're 4 streets over. We will need to move. Unfortunately, it's not beachfront or has a pool, but I'd rather do that than have to cancel the event and send everyone home. And everyone agreed. They're like, we don't want to go home. This is awesome. So I was like, okay. I apologized and I said, look, sometimes we have to pivot in business and we have to roll with the punches, and that's what we're doing. And thank God, most of them were okay with this. So we moved over to the new house. I got everyone set up, got everyone a glass of wine and sat them out on the balcony while we prepped the rest of the house. The biggest part was the chef was in the middle of preparing dinner. Like, every pot and pan had been used. The oven was going. Like, they literally had to move over all of this stuff. It was crazy. And thank God my sister was there too to help, because honestly, I would not have been able to function without her there. And the chef was incredible. Asia was amazing. She basically moved everything over and then still ran the nutrition session. So we were still able to run every part of the retreat except for, I think, one of my coaching sessions, which I then did after like a week later, because it was the one that got interrupted in the afternoon. And so it was on with the show. So we moved into the new house, tried to clean up as much as we can in the old house, and then we got on with the rest of the evening. I went to bed really early that night because my nervous system was shot. Like, I'd never experienced something like that before, and I was so exhausted, and I was still in a bit of shock. Like, I literally had to sit on the floor and calm my nervous system down because I was like, this is the worst case scenario ever. And anyway, got up the next morning, did a beach walk with the group, brought them back. Then we had yoga. Like, Lee then came and did the yoga and did the money session. And then we had the self-love session. And then we had, I think, another afternoon session. And then we finished on the beach. I took everyone down to the beach and we did a beautiful meditation on the beach and a future visualization, which is one of my favorite things to do to end something like this. And then everyone then walked back to the house, packed up, and it was time for everyone to leave. And I remember like sitting on the couch after everyone had left in absolute shock and sitting there with my sister and Asya and being like, how the hell did we get through that? Like, what happened? Like, how the hell did that happen? In absolute shock. And in the end, I think I only had to refund one person, thank God, because we did deliver everything that we had promised, and majority of people were understanding and kind, which was really nice. But it was honestly horrible. And afterwards I was like, I'm never doing this ever again. Never running retreats ever again. What a big risk. Like, no way in hell. And I remember just being like exhausted, like physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted for days to come. And just, yeah, it was so horrible. But the biggest lessons I learned was obviously check the terms and conditions and be upfront and honest. Like, back then, that's what everyone was doing, but I didn't know whether they were like, you don't see the behind the scenes. I didn't know people were saying like, hey, I'm running a retreat. Is that okay? I was just like, everyone's booking Airbnbs. I didn't realize. And so, silly of me, there was like a little intuition nudge that I was like, you should say this is what you're doing. But I didn't listen. And so now I really have developed a stronger relationship with my intuition, to trust when my intuition is saying, hey, there's something not right here. And the other biggest lessons were, do your best to lead. Like, your people will respond based on how you lead and how you communicate. And if I had broken down, cried, if I had been an absolute hot mess and not run the rest of the retreat, then people would have been super unhappy and it would have been a horrible experience for everyone. So I'm glad that I sucked it up and did my best to support everyone through still running the rest of the retreat. And thank God I had Arcia and my sister, honestly. The other biggest lesson I think as well was like, we jam-packed way too much, or I jam-packed way too much into that weekend. I shouldn't have had so many guest speakers. I was trying to pack it full of value so people could see it was worth something, when really I was trying to do everything from health to business to money, like all of it together, instead of actually just being like, this is a business retreat and we're just going to focus on business, and have me run most of the sessions, which I then continue to do when I did run more retreats. I ended up running about 4 or 5 retreats after that, but it took me a good 2 years or something to get over it. And I remember like going to Asia again and being like, I think I want to run another retreat. And she was like, are you nuts? And she was like, oh, come, I'll still be your chef. Like, I'll still come along. Let's just make sure we check the terms and conditions and be really transparent. And so every single time after that, I have done that. And so, but then also the last piece I want to share with you too is like, less is always more. Less is always more when it comes to running retreats. Any type of event, you want to think about the emotional journey that people go on. You want to think about what is heavy content versus light content. You want to think about how you want people to feel at every part of it, the beginning and the end. And a retreat is really a rejuvenation and a restful experience. And so I didn't give space. And the best parts about retreats, honestly, are the conversations that happen in conversation around the tables and in between the activities. And so every time I've run a retreat since, and I've gotten extremely positive feedback from, is when I've done that and really considered the downtime and the in-between moments that make all the difference. So that was my experience. Terrible, huh? My God, it was not fun. It was not fun at all. And obviously learned some big lessons, but anyway, fun times. So I hope that you learn from my mistakes. And if you want to run a retreat, think about these things and read the terms and conditions. Now when I have clients come to me and say, hey, I want to run a retreat, I'm like, okay, hold up, let me tell you. And I usually tell that story and I usually break down like, hey, these are the things that I would do differently. I wouldn't invest too big of a space of a house too early either. Like, you want to guarantee that you've got the numbers to fill it. You also want to price accordingly based on all of the costs, because you will absolutely the cost blow out really quickly. And you want to make sure that you're staying niche and you're staying on brand and you're not jam packing too much into the schedule, because it's a retreat. It's supposed to be a relaxation and enjoyable rather than jam packing it full of an event content. All right, I'm going to leave you there. I hope that you love my story. I hope you learn from my mistakes, and I hope you learn to start sharing more vulnerably, because I know it will create more connection with your people, as I hope this story did for you. All right, lovely. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for listening, and if you found any value out of this episode, make sure you hit the follow button so you get access to the episodes as soon as they are live, and make sure you come hang out with me on Instagram. You can find me at @ChristineCorcoran_coach. Have an incredible week.